a lot of monsters in there. And I enjoyed it for a little bit because, I love throwing hands. You know what I mean? I was like, if you're going to pay me to get in fights, here we go.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. On any given day, tragedy can strike. Frequently, it comes without any signs or warnings. Before you know it, you're in the thick of things, and you have to rely on your instinctual reactions to pull you through. Planning for trauma is like planning for death. You always know there is a distinct possibility, but you're never sure when, where, or how it's going to happen. You do the best you can to make sure that everything is in place to survive another day. After a traumatic incident, there is always room for improvement, but only after you've gone through can you start to see the holes in how you prepared. For those who have survived, it is their job to prepare the next generation. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failce, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Mike Arena to talk about the suffering of officer-involved shootings. Mike knows all too well about the trials and tribulations once that happens. Mike,
I think both Mike's here now.
yes, unfortunate. It's an unfortunate thing, but Mike, thanks so much for coming all this way. We got South Jersey blood in the house.
Nah, I appreciate you guys having me, and South Jersey where it's at, and just going to throw that one out there. It's definitely pork roll. I'm not going to go on that.
And
Thank you. Finally.
Until it comes to high school football, North Jersey is where it's at.
I don't know. Holy Spirit was parochial A champs for a long time. That's my high school.
Yeah, Southern Regional Rams, man. I got to stick with it, dude. I'm sorry.
Seton Hall Prep, Bergen Catholic, Don Bosco,
Yeah, but they
Paramus Catholic.
they recruit.
Like 35 at 35 grand a year
Right,
for high school.
Not for football players.
That's why your taxes are like 20 grand up here.
Before we go any further, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as officers, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack, and we all have a guy as police officers. Like, hey, who's your guy for? Who's your car guy?
I'm a car guy, but hey, cops got guys for everything.
Yes,
I got a guy.
Well,
What do you need?
Our guy is Toyota of Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car. So, Mike, every week we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from Carly76. Since you've retired,
Right.
what brings you joy? And I thought this was an interesting question because if you were a police officer the same way Mike and I were, that job brought us a lot of joy. It brought us a lot of pain too, but it brought us a lot of joy. And when you retire, especially right after you retire, you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So since you retire, what brings you joy?
So, like you said, when you're a cop, a lot of things bring you joy. Helping people brings you joy. That's what we all got into this job to be able to do. And since my retirement, I'm actually starting a nonprofit. It's called the Officer Support Initiative, and that brings me the most joy. Speaking with other cops that have gone through a lot of traumatic incidents around the country, from literally California to Maine to everywhere. Speaking with them on a daily basis and just trying to, understand them and let them express their stories to me. That's what brings me joy.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, you know what? I mean, as gay as it sounds,
Sorry, Mark. Mark, do you understand that we are very well supported by the gay and lesbian community, the LGBTQ community? We
Okay.
have our cards.
okay, as straight as it sounds, one of the things that, this podcast brings me joy.
Yes.
It really does. Because we're out there helping people. And when
Yeah.
people come up to us and say, you guys are doing a great job, you're really helping people. And that brings me joy. But the other thing is I got into volunteer coaching. I was coaching, I was a volunteer coach with high school football and high school baseball. And it's our way. Like you said, we're public servants.
That's it. Yeah.
You're giving back to the community. And
Right.
my way to give back to the community was to help out with, football and baseball.
Yeah,
And
through the youth, definitely.
That brought me a lot of joy.
Obviously, like you, this show has brought me a lot of joy. But aside from helping people, which I think we all can agree that really does make you feel good, I enjoy the creativity of it. I
Right.
enjoy being able to make something out of nothing. And, there's three people sitting around a table who've never met face-to-face before, and we're trying to put out some information that's going to be valuable to somebody else. So you're basically making something out of nothing. And I think that's pretty cool. But,
Yeah.
we spoke about it on our Instagram Live, and thank you for joining in on our Instagram Live.
Got it.
As you were driving.
Yeah, it was that interesting advertisement that was put out. We talked about that. Mike and I both had the opportunity to just somebody reaching out, random person reaching out, and you know, whenever times get tough and stuff starts bringing you down, and you're like, why the heck am I working my ass off? Why am I doing this stuff? That's why.
Yeah.
That one thing, and I'm sure you're getting that with
That
your
reward, yeah, that just a constant grind. You're always like, is something going to come out of this? Is something going to come out of this? And then you get that phone call from somebody, and you're like, everything's well worth it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Kevin, I mean, we talk about it all the time, like Gene Halberger.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the first time he came in, his shoulders were down, and next time he came in, he was, upright, and because he got it off his chest.
You can tell a lot from somebody from just their body
language. Absolutely.
Language
That's why we don't do Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of video or Zoom.
I love that
podcast.
about that. I love that about this.
Because
is that you guys get up close and in person with the
You got to
individual.
read someone.
Yeah,
You got to read someone and see like where they're at in their head.
definitely.
Well, we had a discussion about that when we first made contact with each other through Frankie from Street Cop Training.
Yeah.
And I explained it to him, and we've had the opportunity to get certain guests on here through Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
but I've done the Zoom podcast. I don't like it. I'll do it when it's necessary, but you cut people off.
Right.
I can see when you're about to speak. I can watch you taking a breath, and okay, it's my turn to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see when you're feeling down, and we
Right.
could.
You can really read that emotion off somebody.
And you're also able to pull things out of
Do
people.
you remember we did that one Zoom podcast when we were down in Florida?
With Lynn and Will.
Yeah.
Lynn and Will. It wasn't Will and Grace.
It kept coming in and going out.
Yeah.
And coming in and going out.
Yeah, you got like that
Well,
delay sometimes.
Listen, they're great people and they have a great podcast. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I listen to them all the time, but it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Not to mention we were exhausted. So, Carly, thank
And
you.
it was the only nice day in Florida too.
Yeah, I
we were
know.
stuck doing
It was the only day we could wear shorts. Carly, thank you so much for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So I looked into you quite a bit. Looked through it's just like every guest comes here. Basically, what I do is I look at your social media, because social media is going to tell me the narrative that you want to say, and then I'll go in and do the Google search just like everybody else. But I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Mike Arena. I'm 31 years old. I'm from Manahawkin, New Jersey. Go South Jersey.
Yes.
You're not an Eagles fan too, are you?
No, I'm a Giant fan, Ranger fan, Yankee fan. Sorry, pal.
All right, get out.
Yeah.
Giant fan, and you're in South Jersey?
Yeah, man.
It's like we flip-flopped.
I know.
And a Yankee fan.
And a Ranger fan. Like you're not a Flyer fan, are you?
Of course.
Oh man, your heart gets broken every year. I'm sorry.
Well, one of my good friends used to play for the Flyers. So
all right,
that's one of the,
that's understandable.
Mike knows exactly who I'm talking about, Adam Bird.
Right.
But and my mother. So one of the guys that lives down there is Dave Schultz. I don't know if you know who Dave Schultz was.
I do not know.
Dave Schultz has the record for the most penalty box time. As a matter of fact, he sang a song, the penalty box.
He was with the Broad Street Bullies.
Broad
There you
Street
go.
Bullies. So he's a legendary fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who protected Bobby Clark in the Flyers. So my mom actually does his hair.
Oh, there you go.
And I walk in one day, and there's Dave Schultz, one of the toughest men in hockey, getting a pedicure.
Really?
And I looked at him, and he's such a genuinely nice guy.
Right.
I go, and I walk in playing penalty box on my phone. If you look, you got to look it up. So look it up, Dave Schultz penalty box. It's kind of a funny song.
Yeah.
And
I mean, those hockey skates got to do a lot to your toenails. So now that they retire, they're going to get pedicures.
and he's always smiling too. I'm like, what happened to Dave Schultz? Dave the Hammer.
He left it all on the ice, man. That's it.
I guess. So you other than being a New York fan, which I don't know about that one. We're gonna have to work on that.
Give it some time. You'll like it in a little bit.
So you grew up in Manahawkin. So
Yeah.
Spent time where? So did you go to the LBI section?
Yeah, so Manahawkin is literally like 2 miles away from LBI. So I just
With
grew
the
up on
worst
beach.
strawberry flies in the planet.
Yes, they're bad, especially with like the west wind and everything like that. It's a killer right there.
We don't have them in North Jersey beaches.
Yeah, it's
We're
because the
not
only thing
strawberry
around
flies.
here is like hills and trees.
You go to like Point Pleasant, Belmar. We don't have those strawberry flies.
No, so the LBI's got the greenheads.
Yeah.
Greenheads are bad in themselves. The strawberry flies in Manahawkin, they'll eat you alive.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. But yeah, so I
I mean,
started.
that's a great promotion for the Jersey Shore. I appreciate you really promoting the Jersey Shore like that.
Manahawkin's far away from Jersey Shore.
Yeah, it's like half Pine Barrens, half. It's like there's no boardwalk, there's nothing there. It's relaxation or Pine Barrens.
Flat.
One of the two. Yeah,
Super flat.
exactly.
Yeah. So how was it growing up in Manahawkin?
It was good. I loved it. I literally I loved growing up there. Played high school football there. It's a very, very small, quiet town. Everybody knows everybody, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, I'm sure you guys understand that. You just go to a supermarket, you see 5 people you know, whoever you graduated high school with, or whatever the case may be.
It's
So,
one of those towns that nobody leaves.
yeah,
Yeah.
you ain't kidding.
Yeah, nobody leaves. It's the same people who grew up playing junior league football are the same people working at the supermarket, the gas station, whatever
Right,
else is
right.
close by.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up doing that, and then how I started my career in law enforcement. I actually graduated high school. I became a special in Point Pleasant Beach. I was a special up there for 2 summers, and then I got hired by state corrections, took the civil service test.
No, stop with the special portion
Right.
of it. So when I used to go home for college, I'd work in Avalon, work at Jack's Place right on Ocean Drive.
Right.
And so Avalon had 2 cops in the winter, and they had 30 specials
Right.
in the summer. Because obviously you get the Pennsylvania traffic coming
100%.
in there. What was it like? Did you get looked at differently as a special?
Definitely,
Yeah.
because a lot of people from North Jersey would come down to the shore, and they know you're part time. They know you're like summer cops.
We used to call them square badges.
Right, exactly, like rent a cops or whatever the case may be. So you got heckled a lot, but at the end of the day, especially working in a beach town like that, when all the bars close and everything like that, you're doing the same thing as the full-time officers do. Like you're rolling around with drunk idiots, you're dealing with all that stupid domestic stuff, because once you put alcohol involved and partying all night and someone gets into an argument, it turns into fist throwing, and you guys know that gamut.
Well, they're not going to identify whether your badge says special
Never.
or police.
No.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some departments have like a patch on your arm that's like special 2 or whatever the case may be. So, like I said, I did that for a little bit and then took the civil service test. Got picked up by state corrections. I worked in Trenton State Prison for a little bit.
With the salad tosser.
It was fun.
That's where he is, right?
Yes.
The salad tosser?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And if you don't know who the salad tosser is, all you got to do is watch the Chris Rock special, and it'll scare the shit out of you. He says something like, HBO put out this documentary about Trenton State Prison, and he goes, you don't want to put kids in Scared Straight, just put them in front of the salad tosser guy.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to tell you what salad tossing is. If you
Right.
don't know, look it up.
Use your imagination,
Yeah.
people.
I don't want to know.
But that's also where Kuklinski
Yeah.
was.
Yes, and also where Jamal Crockham is. He was the guy that took Christopher Maltos' life, the Lakewood cop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was on my unit when I first got hired there, and so you just have a lot of monsters in there, and I enjoyed it for a little bit because I love throwing hands. You know what I mean? I was like, if you're gonna pay me to get in fights, here we go.
But I mean, these guys are guys that have nothing to lose.
Absolutely
Yeah,
nothing.
they
They're in
got
there for
nothing
their
to lose.
entire lives.
And
They
nasty, too.
get sentenced to
gross.
a life term in prison.
Mm-hmm.
What do they got to lose?
Right.
What are you going to get into a fight with a corrections officer and get another life term?
All they do is get thrown into like whatever our detention unit was. Right. I think it was like 7 left at that time, and it's like our ad seg. They go in there for like 2 or 3 months. Same thing. 3 hots in a cot. And they go right back to Gen Pop. So they got really nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So they don't care if they smack you in the face or whatever the case may be. So I enjoyed that.
Getting smacked in the face. Yeah,
Right.
it sounds fun. Sounds
With
like
a sock of batteries.
Right. So yeah, I did that for a few years, and then it got to the point where I was like, man, this sucks. Like when you work in state prison, you basically get treated like an inmate. You got to go through.
I was going to say, you're
mental
more of a prisoner than they are.
100%. Yeah.
Because
So
the prisoners could roam, and like Gen Pop, they could roam. You
Right.
have your assignment, and you got to
you're
stay right
stuck
there.
in your unit for 8 hours, right? And when you get into the prison, you need to go through a body scanner. You got to go through a metal detector, so you can't bring anything in, obviously, right? You're dead to the world for 8 hours. You can't bring your own food in, so you got to eat what the inmates make you in the ODR, which is the officer's dining room. So
yeah, that's something I would do. I just
Right.
That's intermittent fasting at its best, right there.
100%. So I work 2 to 10 shifts, so you either got to intermittent fast or you got to eat something. So some guys eat the food. I chose not to. And if I did make it, I would make like a cheese quesadilla. I'm like, how much could you really screw this up? You know what I mean? This stuff comes packaged. Hopefully no one screws with it. So that's what I would really kind of run with. And I did that for a few years. And then my buddy who works down in Prince George's County, Maryland, called me. And he was like, hey, man, we're hiring if you want to come down to be a county police officer. I was like, I want to go back to the road. So I left state corrections, went down there, went to a 3rd police academy. Worked down in PG for a little over 3 years. And then all my buddies that are working in beach towns like Point Beach and, down AC and all that area, they were like, dude, you got to come back up here, man. We're making good money up here. $100,000 sit on a beach. I was like, you know what? I'll transfer up. So I transferred up. I I got hired by Stockton PD off the state civil service list again. Worked there for like a little over a year.
That's about 3 miles from where I grew up.
Right. Yes, because you know the area, definitely. So I worked there for about a year. I got put on the county SWAT team down in Atlantic County, and then I transferred to Ventnor, and I finished my career out in Ventnor.
Yeah. So Ventnor used to be like, it was the people who didn't want to live in Atlantic City anymore.
Right.
The richer people.
Yes.
But wanted to go to Atlantic City all the time.
They wanted to be in that city.
What's it, about a mile away, a mile south of Atlantic City?
Borders.
It's borders.
Yeah,
borders.
borders,
Yeah.
right there.
When you see
You get that one little lake right there. That
when you see the Knife and Fork, which is on the corner where Pacific and Atlantic meet,
Yep.
you're in Ventnor.
Mm-hmm.
And Ventnor was always a very they always had a very tough football team growing up.
well, if you're coming down, what's it, the Atlantic City Expressway? You look to the right, it's Ventnor.
Yes.
To the left, it's Atlantic City.
You're correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's an interesting area, and then when you go further south through Margate, and Northport, then you're starting to
It keeps getting like richer and richer as you go down.
And that, you know what, it'll change, just like Ventnor changed. When I grew up, Ventnor was super rich.
We call it like the cigarette, right? So Atlantic City would be like all the tobacco, and then Ventnor's going to be your filter, right? And then everything goes in Margate and Longport's all the nice stuff.
But eventually that filter gets dirty.
That filter
too.
gets dirtier. Like it gets bigger and bigger, longer and longer. I mean, and Margate's dealing with it too. It's just progressively going down. You can't stop. Unfortunately, you can't stop what Atlantic City's turning into. It's just a train, and it's going to derail at some point. And unfortunately, that's it.
I was down there not too long ago, and growing up in Atlantic City, we would go. It was different when I was a kid. Like, we used to ride down Pacific Avenue and look at the hookers. Well, the hookers aren't really there anymore because they don't need to be out on the street.
Right.
And
They'll be dead.
Yeah, it's just like the town that time forgot. It's all check cashing places and bail bond stuff.
And you probably saw it like from where you grew up. I mean, you probably have the best perspective of it. I mean, you grew up there, and now you're seeing what it is firsthand.
So it got nice for a while.
Right.
So Gardner's Basin was the inlet.
Yep.
And there were certain times of the day at night you never went into the inlet. Like me, I could never go into the inlet. I had a lot of friends, and they told me, they're like, stay out of the inlet at night. Now it's Gardner's Basin, and the last time I was down there, I think I took my kids on like a dolphin watch. I go, what the hell happened? What is this crap?
Right.
This was a place you didn't go to. Now you go to Ducktown. Ducktown was always the really nice area, but I took my wife a couple years. I noticed this probably 15 years ago. I took my wife to Angeloni's, which I hear is closing.
Yep, it is.
I took my wife to Angeloni's on Georgia Avenue, and I couldn't believe it. Like Nicky Scarfo's house, there's people out on the stoop drinking. I go, what the hell is going on here? And, I follow South Jersey news, but I know Ventnor is the same way. I'm starting to read more and more stuff about Ventnor.
Yeah, it is. That filter, like you said, is just it's getting clogged.